Tell me about your grandfather.
Well, my grandfather was a farmer, and he was born in the 1800s and went to school for a few years and ended up having a farm. Beginning to farm at a young age and did quite well with what he had.
What led him to the land that he selected?
Hell, he was born there.
Same plot of land as you have now?
It is.
What year was he born in?
He was born in 1891.
And he farmed until he passed away? He farmed
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
When did he pass away?
He passed away in 1980.
Wow. That's some good longevity.
He lived a long time, yeah. He'd actually never changed, as far as from my point of view, he never changed physically from the time I can remember him. And I was born in '61, so he's just this wonderful old skinny old man.
In terms of what he grew, his history with the vines, I know the old and mature vines are his, but I understand there's also quite a lot of other stuff. What do you know about the early days of agriculture on your family's farm?
All I know is that there were vines on the property, and they were unrooted and lasted several years. And actually, I lied. He wasn't born on that property, but he was born in Windsor in Sonoma County. But the family then bought the property when he was 8 or 9 years old, and they moved there. So he didn't really select it; his father did. But they had other things growing there. They had hay evidently growing on the property. There's hay cutting and raking equipment on the property. I don't know if you saw that when you were up there, but it's parked, or it's being stored, kind of off the beaten track there. And so then he planted prune trees for drying, and that was the major crop that they farmed there, and it was actually a very good crop. So he had quite a fondness for those trees, and even when the market had changed and the trees were no longer as productive as they weren't terribly well. They weren't economically really feasible by today's standards, but he loved those trees, and as he loved the vines that he had. But that wasn't his main focus. Actually, the trees, from my perspective, were his love, and my father respected that. And even though it was not a economic thing, they didn't necessarily need to change crops, but it became time that it was the right thing to do. And I remember, near the end, my grandfather admitted that this was the right thing to do, to change crops, but it hurt him down to his toes, to see those trees go. So the trees went in, smaller, or they were converted to vines every few years, just in chunks where we could do the physical work to plant and raise them ourselves. We didn't contract all that work out, with minor exceptions, maybe with some help with putting the vines in. During hot spells, we'd get some other people to come in and help put them in so that they wouldn't dry out. But all the training and all that was essentially my grandfather, my father, and myself as well. When I wasn't in school, I wanted to hang out with my dad, so he spent all of his free time out there. At the time, my father operated an auto parts store, which is what fed our family. But every weekend and bit of free time that he had, he was working out there for his parents. So I wanted to hang out with my dad and grandfather, so it was logical I'd go out there and try to pitch in. So from the time I was 10 years old, a few years before that I would try to help, but I was a little too young to stay focused. So about the time I was 10 years old, I was regularly going out there and being allowed to drive equipment and things like that, which was glorious for a kid of that age. So that was a lot of fun.